They thought they could break me, but all they did was fuel my fire. I remember the day I got kicked out like it was yesterday. 7 months pregnant, vulnerable, and full of fear, I was shoved out the door by the very people I thought would protect me, my own family. The betrayal cut deeper than anything. How could they turn their backs on me when I needed them most? I was carrying a new life, yet they rejected me like I was nothing. But in that moment, something inside me ignited. A fire, fueled by anger, heartbreak, and a fierce determination not just to survive, but to come back stronger than anyone expected. I promised myself that day. I wouldn't disappear. I wouldn't let their cruelty define me. I would return. And when I did, it would be on my terms, with a vengeance so powerful they'd regret ever turning me away. The night I was kicked out still haunts me. I stood on that porch, my swollen belly aching, tears streaming down my face. The cold wind cut through my jacket, and my suitcase, the only thing I owned, symbolized everything I had lost. The woman who raised me, the family I once knew. They all turned their backs. I was alone. But as the door slammed behind me, something inside snapped. I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to thrive. I wanted to prove them wrong, to show them I was stronger than they ever imagined. The weeks that followed were brutal. I bounced between shelters, small apartments, and the kindness of strangers. Every day was a struggle. Carrying a baby while trying to find stability was exhausting, and each night I cried myself to sleep, overwhelmed and scared. But I didn't give up. I had to keep going. For my baby. I started working any job I could find, cleaning houses, waiting tables. Every day was a fight, but I kept pushing forward, saving money, building a life from the ground up. I found a small, run-down apartment, and slowly it became a safe haven for me and my baby. I read books on business, financial independence, and self-improvement. I was determined to change my story. While my family lived comfortably, judging me from afar, I was building something real, something they could never take away. I found strength in unexpected places. The friends I made along the way became my new family. Their belief in me gave me the courage to keep going. And then I realized revenge wouldn't come from anger. It would come from success, from standing tall, from showing them that they didn't break me. They made me unstoppable. By the time my baby was born, I was ready to face the world. I started an online business selling handmade products, and it took off. The income grew, and so did my belief in myself. I kept my success a secret from my family. Let them think I was struggling. Let them underestimate me. Because when the time was right, I would show them everything they missed. Then, one day, I walked back into their lives. Not as the pregnant girl they had rejected, but as a strong, successful woman who had built her empire from nothing. Their jaws dropped. They wanted to know who I was, where I'd been, and how I managed to turn my life around. But I wasn't interested in their pity or fake apologies. I wanted respect. I wanted them to realize what they had lost, the daughter and sister they had thrown away. I stood tall, proud of every scar, every sleepless night, every tear shed in silence. I was no longer their victim. I was their reckoning. This was only the beginning. Walking back into the house where I'd once been cast out felt surreal. The place that had once been filled with rejection now stood before me as an invitation to rewrite my story. But I wasn't the scared, pregnant girl they had tossed aside. I was Avery, the woman who had survived, the woman who had built everything on her own. The moment I stepped inside, I could feel the tension, shock, confusion, maybe even fear. They didn't recognize me anymore. Not the same Avery who had been weak and dependent. No, I was someone powerful, confident, and in control. The kind of person they never expected to come back. My mother's eyes widened when she saw me standing there. For a second, I thought she might say something cruel, but instead, she just looked away. I saw the regret in her eyes, a wound she couldn't hide. I held my head high, refusing to let her see me falter. I didn't come back to beg for forgiveness or ask for acceptance. I came back to show them what they lost when they threw me out. I came back with power. Over the months I'd been gone, I turned every ounce of pain and rejection into fuel. My online business had grown beyond my wildest dreams, orders flooding in from places I'd never imagined. I had staff now, a small, loyal team who believed in me and my vision. I owned a place of my own where my baby could grow up safe and loved. But it wasn't just about the money or success. It was about reclaiming my dignity and proving their cruelty couldn't hold me down.
I was standing on my own, and I was proud of it. I didn't just survive, I thrived, and that's the sweetest revenge. Family dinners were awkward at first. Their forced smiles and hesitant questions felt like tests I wasn't sure I wanted to pass. But I played my part with grace, answering their questions politely but firmly, keeping the past in the past, never letting their old words sting me again. One night, after dinner, my mother pulled me aside. Her voice was quiet, almost shaky. "Avery, I'm sorry. I was wrong to treat you like that. You didn't deserve it." Her apology hung in the air, heavy with years of pain and regret. I felt anger bubbling up, anger at the years wasted, the tears shed alone. But I also felt something else, a cautious hope. "I don't forget," I told her softly, "but I'm willing to move forward if you are." That night was a turning point. The walls between us started to crumble, replaced by conversations that were raw, honest, and sometimes painful. We began to unpack years of hurt, sometimes with tears, sometimes with laughter. I realized that revenge wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about reclaiming my life and creating something beautiful from the ashes. It was about showing my child what strength and resilience looked like. And every time I looked at my baby, I knew I was fighting for more than just myself. I was fighting to break a cycle, to build a family where love wasn't conditional, where no one would ever be cast aside. My family's regret was real. They had lost so much by pushing me away. But my comeback was a testament to the power of believing in yourself, even when the people who should love you most don't. I'm not perfect. The scars from the past are still there, but I'm healing. Every day, I'm becoming the woman I was always meant to be, strong, proud, and unstoppable. And this is just the beginning of my story. Even after the initial shock of my return settled, the real work began, the work of rebuilding fractured relationships and redefining who I was to my family. It wasn't easy. My mom's apology was a start, but it didn't erase the years of hurt, silence, and rejection. Healing was going to take time, and I was prepared for that. One of the hardest parts was learning to trust again. How could I believe that the mother who had kicked me out while I was carrying her grandchild would suddenly be different? It took watching her consistently show up differently over months, small gestures that said, "I want to be better." She started with simple things. She called to check on me and the baby. She showed up unannounced with little gifts. Nothing extravagant, just thoughtful things like blankets and baby clothes. She began asking questions about my business, genuinely interested rather than judgmental. Slowly, I saw a change, a willingness to bridge the gap. But it wasn't just about my mom. Other family members who had stood silently by when I was thrown out now faced their own awkwardness. Some were quick to apologize, others stayed distant. I understood their hesitation. The wounds were deep and complicated. I decided not to rush anyone or force forgiveness. I was focused on my own peace. Daniel was my anchor through all this. He encouraged me every step of the way, reminding me to stay grounded and true to myself. "You've come so far, Avery," he'd say. "Don't lose sight of that. This is your journey." His unwavering support gave me strength on the toughest days, when doubt crept in, when old fears whispered that I wasn't enough. With him by my side, I found the courage to keep moving forward. One evening, as I sat rocking my sleeping baby, I reflected on how far I'd come. From that moment of despair, being kicked out and alone, to where I was now, a successful entrepreneur, a proud mother, and a woman who refused to be broken. I realized that my revenge wasn't about revenge at all. It was about survival and triumph. I decided to channel my story into something that could inspire others. I began sharing parts of my journey on social media, honest, raw posts about struggle, resilience, and empowerment. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from women who had faced rejection, abuse, and hardship. They saw themselves in my story and found hope. That gave my comeback new meaning. It wasn't just about proving my family wrong. It was about lifting up anyone who felt broken or abandoned. It was about showing that no matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. Eventually, my mom and I reached a new understanding. We still had tough conversations and moments of tension, but they were grounded in honesty and a shared desire to heal. She admitted her fears and regrets openly, and I shared my pain without holding back. One afternoon, as we sat sipping tea, she said something that stayed with me. "I lost so much when I pushed you away, but watching you fight and grow has been the hardest lesson of my life. I hope we can keep building, one day at a time." Those words touched me deeply. Forgiveness isn't a destination, it's a daily choice. And I was ready to choose it, even when it was hard. My story isn't just about being kicked out or getting revenge. It's about resilience, self-love, and reclaiming your power when the people who should protect you fail. It's about showing up for yourself when no one else will. To anyone watching this, feeling lost or betrayed, know this. You are stronger than your circumstances. Your worth isn't defined by others' opinions or actions, and your story is far from over. Avery's journey is proof that even in the darkest moments, you can rise, rebuild, and come back with a power no one can take away. As Avery continued to rebuild her life, she realized something important. True revenge wasn't about tearing others down. It was about rising so high that they could never touch you again. Her success had become a shield, a testament to her strength and determination. But the emotional journey was just as profound. She spent countless nights reflecting on the years of rejection and pain, learning to separate her worth from the cruel words she'd been told. Avery understood that the scars her family left behind weren't just wounds to be hidden, but lessons to be embraced. They had shaped her resilience, her drive, and her compassion. Avery's business flourished beyond what she'd imagined. Orders came flooding in from across the country, and soon she was able to hire a small team. Each new milestone was a victory, not just financially, but emotionally. She was proving to herself and to the world that she was more than her past. But despite her professional success, Avery was mindful of the fragile new relationship she was building with her mother. She knew that trust couldn't be rushed. Every interaction was a test, every conversation a chance to either heal or hurt deeper wounds. Her mother, too, was learning. She showed up differently, more present, more open. She admitted her mistakes and expressed a genuine desire to change. It wasn't perfect, and some days were harder than others, but the willingness was there. One afternoon, as Avery sat with her mother in the garden of her own home, a home she had fought hard to secure, her mother looked around and sighed. "You've built something incredible here, Avery. I'm so proud of you." Hearing those words from the woman who once cast her out was bittersweet. It reminded Avery of how far she'd come and how much she'd overcome. But it also reaffirmed her commitment to herself, that no matter what, she would never let anyone dim her light again. The emotional healing gave Avery the strength to be vulnerable in ways she hadn't allowed before. She began sharing her story openly, not just to inspire others, but to free herself from the shame and silence that had burdened her for so long. Social media became her platform for truth, where honesty met hope. Messages poured in from women and men who had faced their own battles of rejection and abandonment. They saw Avery's strength and found courage in her words. Many thanked her for speaking out, for showing that it was possible to rise above pain and build a life filled with love and success. This outpouring of support became a new source of power for Avery, a reminder that she was not alone and that her story mattered. Meanwhile, Avery continued to navigate the complicated terrain of family. There were still moments of tension with her mother and other relatives who struggled to fully accept the new dynamics, but Avery had learned to protect herself with boundaries and self-respect. She no longer allowed old patterns to dictate her happiness. Instead, she chose who to let into her life and on what terms. This empowerment was a victory just as important as any financial success. Looking back, Avery realized that the day she was kicked out while pregnant wasn't the end of her story. It was the catalyst. It forced her to face her fears, fight harder, and believe in herself, even when no one else did. Her comeback wasn't just about revenge against those who hurt her. It was a celebration of survival, growth, and reclaiming her narrative. Avery knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. Healing is ongoing, and relationships require continual work. But she was ready, stronger, wiser, and surrounded by a community that loved and supported her. And as she cradled her child one quiet evening, Avery smiled. She was living proof that even in the darkest moments, you can find the strength to rise and build a life filled with love, purpose, and unstoppable power. Avery's transformation wasn't just external, it was deeply internal. Beyond the business success and the new life she was building, the real victory was reclaiming her sense of self-worth and healing the emotional wounds that had haunted her for years. There were moments when the pain resurfaced unexpectedly.
A harsh word, a cold glance, or an unexpected silence from her mother could bring back the old feelings of rejection and loneliness. But Avery no longer let those moments define her. Instead, she treated them as reminders of how far she'd come and as opportunities to reaffirm her strength. Her journey also taught her the importance of forgiveness, not as a gift for those who hurt her, but as a gift for herself. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting or excusing what happened. It meant releasing the grip of bitterness so she could move forward with peace. One of the most profound experiences came when Avery decided to write a letter, not to her mother, but to her younger self. She poured her heart out on the pages, offering the love and reassurance she had longed for during those dark days. "I see you," the letter began. "I know how scared and alone you feel, but you are stronger than you realize. You will rise, you will rebuild, and you will create a life full of love and hope. Don't ever forget that." Writing that letter was cathartic. It helped Avery close old chapters and open new ones with compassion and grace. As Avery's business continued to thrive, she became more involved in her community. She started mentoring young women who faced similar struggles, those who were rejected, abandoned, or underestimated. Sharing her story wasn't just healing for her. It was a beacon of hope for others. Through workshops and speaking events, Avery emphasized that success isn't just measured by money or status, but by the courage to overcome adversity and the willingness to keep fighting for your dreams. Her message resonated far beyond what she imagined. Women reached out with stories of their own pain and resilience. They thanked Avery for giving them permission to believe in themselves and to seek a better life. While Avery's relationship with her family remained a work in progress, she had found peace in setting healthy boundaries. She realized that sometimes love means protecting yourself, even if that means keeping distance. Daniel continued to be her unwavering support, reminding her every day that she was deserving of love and happiness. Together, they created a home where their child could grow surrounded by kindness, security, and hope, things Avery had longed for during her darkest days. One evening, Avery sat by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. She thought about the long road she had traveled, from the moment she was kicked out, pregnant and alone, to the woman she had become. She smiled softly, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Every hardship, every tear, Every moment of doubt had shaped her into someone who not only survived, but thrived. Avery knew the future held challenges. Life always does. But she was ready. She carried the lessons of her past like armor, the love of her family and community like a shield, and the unshakable belief in herself like a beacon. Her story was far from over. It was a testament to the power of resilience, the strength of self love, and the truth that even when the people you expect to protect you fail, you can still rise, rebuild, and shine brighter than ever. And for anyone watching this who's hurting, feeling lost, or abandoned, Avery's journey is a reminder. You have the power to rewrite your story. Your worth is not defined by others. You are capable of incredible things. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply to rise and live your best life. As Avery's life continued to evolve, she became more aware of the subtle ways in which trauma and rejection could leave lasting marks, not just on her, but on her child too. Carrying a baby while homeless and abandoned had been terrifying, but becoming a mother gave her a renewed sense of purpose. She was determined to break the cycle, to give her child the love and security she had been denied. Motherhood deepened Avery's resilience in ways she never expected. Every smile, every coo, every milestone was a reminder of what she was fighting for. But it also brought new challenges. She had to balance the demands of her growing business with the endless needs of a newborn. She often found herself exhausted, physically and emotionally drained, yet she never wavered. Through the sleepless nights and overwhelming days, Avery kept reminding herself that she was not alone. The community she had built, friends, mentors, supporters, lifted her up when she faltered. She found solace in their encouragement, knowing that healing didn't mean doing it all on her own. One of the hardest lessons Avery learned was the importance of self-care. For so long, she had put everyone else's needs above her own, trying to prove she was worthy. But now she understood that caring for herself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. Without strength and health, she couldn't fully support her child or continue her mission. Slowly, Avery began carving out time for herself. Moments of quiet reflection, walks in nature, and even therapy sessions focused on healing generational wounds. She learned to identify triggers and to respond with compassion instead of fear or anger. Her relationship with her mother remained complex. There were still times when old patterns emerged, when a careless comment would reopen fresh wounds or when silence stretched too long between them. But Avery had grown too much to be controlled by those moments. She addressed them openly, setting firm boundaries and expecting respect. One particularly painful incident reminded her of how far she had come. During a family gathering, her mother made a passive-aggressive remark about Avery's choices. Instead of shrinking or retreating, Avery calmly confronted the comment, expressing how it made her feel and why it was unacceptable. The room went quiet. Some family members looked surprised, others uncomfortable. But Avery felt a surge of pride. She was no longer the girl who accepted insults in silence. She was a woman demanding dignity. Daniel was always there to support her, often stepping in gently when things got heated. He encouraged her to keep speaking her truth and to never settle for less than she deserved. Their partnership was a source of joy and stability, a safe harbor in the storm. As Avery's confidence grew, she also became more involved in advocacy. She used her story to raise awareness about the challenges faced by pregnant women and mothers who experience homelessness and family rejection. Through speaking engagements, charity work, and social media, she inspired countless others to find their voice and fight for their rights. The ripple effect of her journey was profound. Women reached out from all over, sharing their struggles and triumphs. Avery connected with organizations focused on supporting mothers and families in crisis, dedicating time and resources to help those who, like her, had been cast aside. Despite the successes and the healing, Avery remained humble. She knew that life's journey was ongoing and that each day brought new opportunities and challenges, but she faced the future with hope and determination. Her story was no longer just about survival or revenge. It was about transformation, about turning pain into power, rejection into acceptance, and brokenness into wholeness. Avery's life was a testament to the fact that even when the people who should love you most fail, you can still rise. You can still build a life of meaning and joy. You can still be unstoppable. And as she looked into the bright eyes of her child, Avery knew she was exactly where she was meant to be: strong, loved, and ready to face whatever came next. Avery's journey taught her many lessons, but one stood out above the rest: that true strength isn't just about what you build on the outside, it's about the healing you do within. As she moved forward, she realized that the scars from her past didn't have to hold her hostage. Instead, they could become the foundation for a life filled with purpose, compassion, and authenticity. Reconnecting with her mother was never going to be simple, and Avery understood that deeply. Forgiveness, she learned, was a process, not a single act. There were still times when old wounds resurfaced, when words were said in frustration or pain, and when the memories of rejection felt sharp and raw. But now Avery had tools she hadn't had before: patience, boundaries, and the courage to speak up. One afternoon, she found herself sitting with her mother in the living room, the same room where years ago harsh words had sent Avery away. This time, the atmosphere was different. There was no tension, no bitterness, just two women trying to find common ground. Her mother reached out, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm sorry, Avery, for everything. I was scared, and I didn't know how to love the way you needed, but I'm trying. I want to be better. For you, and for my grandchild." Avery nodded, tears welling up. "I'm still healing, Mom, and I know you are too, but I believe we can get there, together." That moment was a turning point. Not the end, but a new beginning. Beyond her family, Avery's world was blossoming. Her business was thriving, but more than that, she found fulfillment in helping others. She mentored young women who faced the kind of rejection and hardship she had endured. Through workshops, one-on-one coaching, and speaking engagements, she used her story to inspire resilience and hope. Every time a woman told her, "Your story gave me strength," Avery felt a deep sense of purpose. She was transforming her pain into power, not just for herself, but for others. Motherhood remained at the heart of her transformation. Avery poured love, time, and energy into creating a nurturing environment for her child, a space where unconditional love was the foundation. She vowed to break the cycle of pain, to teach her child that their worth was inherent, never conditional. The nights when she rocked her baby to sleep were moments of quiet reflection. Avery thought about how far she had come, from the fear and loneliness of being kicked out to the fierce determination that fueled her comeback. She was proud of her journey, and she was hopeful about the future. Still, Avery knew the road ahead wasn't free from challenges. Life would continue to test her strength and resilience, but she faced those challenges with a renewed spirit and an unshakable belief in herself. Her story wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming her life, her happiness, and her identity. It was about proving that even in the darkest moments, you can find the light to guide you forward. For anyone watching this, Avery's message was clear. No matter how deep the pain, how harsh the rejection, or how heavy the burden, you have the power to rise, to rebuild, to live the life you deserve. Avery's journey was proof that sometimes the greatest revenge is simply to survive and thrive. Avery's journey taught her many lessons, but one stood out above the rest: that true strength isn't just about what you build on the outside, It's about the healing you do within. As she moved forward, she realized that the scars from her past didn't have to hold her hostage. Instead, they could become the foundation for a life filled with purpose, compassion, and authenticity. Reconnecting with her mother was never going to be simple, and Avery understood that deeply. Forgiveness, she learned, was a process, not a single act. There were still times when old wounds resurfaced, when words were said in frustration or pain, and when the memories of rejection felt sharp and raw. But now, Avery had tools she hadn't had before: patience, boundaries, and the courage to speak up. One afternoon, she found herself sitting with her mother in the living room, the same room where years ago harsh words had sent Avery away. This time, the atmosphere was different. There was no tension, no bitterness, just two women trying to find common ground. Her mother reached out, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm sorry, Avery, for everything. I was scared, and I didn't know how to love the way you needed. But I'm trying. I want to be better. For you, and for my grandchild." Avery nodded, tears welling up. "I'm still healing, Mom, and I know you are too. But I believe we can get there. Together." That moment was a turning point. Not the end, but a new beginning. Beyond her family, Avery's world was blossoming. Her business was thriving, but more than that, she found fulfillment in helping others. She mentored young women who faced the kind of rejection and hardship she had endured. Through workshops, one-on-one coaching, and speaking engagements, she used her story to inspire resilience and hope. Every time a woman told her, "Your story gave me strength," Avery felt a deep sense of purpose. She was transforming her pain into power, not just for herself, but for others. Motherhood remained at the heart of her transformation. Avery poured love, time, and energy into creating a nurturing environment for her child, a space where unconditional love was the foundation. She vowed to break the cycle of pain, to teach her child that their worth was inherent, never conditional. The nights when she rocked her baby to sleep were moments of quiet reflection. Avery thought about how far she had come, from the fear and loneliness of being kicked out to the fierce determination that fueled her comeback. She was proud of her journey, and she was hopeful about the future. Still, Avery knew the road ahead wasn't free from challenges. Life would continue to test her strength and resilience. But she faced those challenges with a renewed spirit and an unshakable belief in herself. Her story wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming her life, her happiness, and her identity. As Avery's life took new shape, she discovered something profound. Healing and success alone weren't enough to fill the space left by years of rejection. She needed to find peace, not just within herself, but with the family she had longed to belong to. It was a delicate balance between holding on to her strength and opening her heart to forgiveness, even when it felt impossible. One day, Avery received a message from her younger sister, someone who had been silent during the hardest times. The message was tentative but sincere. "I'm sorry for not standing up for you. I want to be a part of your life again." Her heart tightened. She knew forgiveness wasn't automatic and relationships weren't easily repaired overnight. But this was a start, a small crack in the wall that had kept them apart for so long. Avery replied, cautiously hopeful. They began to talk more, sharing memories, regrets, and dreams for the future. It was awkward at times, and sometimes painful, but it was real. Avery realized that healing family wasn't about erasing the past. It was about creating new memories built on honesty and respect. Meanwhile, Avery's business continued to grow. She expanded her product line and hired more staff. Each new order, each positive review, was a reminder that she was capable of greatness, no matter where she started. But success wasn't just about money or status. It was about reclaiming her voice, and inspiring others to do the same. Her social media platform became a beacon for women facing rejection, hardship, and loneliness. She shared her story not to dwell on pain, but to shine a light on resilience and the power of self-love. Messages flooded in. Stories of women who had found courage through Avery's journey. She realized that her ultimate revenge wasn't in proving her family wrong. It was in lifting others up, breaking cycles of hurt, and creating a community where strength and kindness prevailed. Avery also prioritized her mental health more than ever. She continued therapy, learning to navigate triggers and practice self-compassion. She learned that self-care wasn't indulgence, it was survival. Her relationship with Daniel grew stronger through all of this. His unwavering belief in her was a constant reminder that she deserved love, respect, and happiness. Together, they created a home where their child could grow surrounded by kindness, security, and hope. Things Avery had longed for during her darkest days. Yet, despite progress, Avery remained realistic. Some family members were still distant, unable or unwilling to change. She accepted that some relationships might never heal, and that was okay. Her peace didn't depend on others' approval. It depended on her own choices. One afternoon, Avery took her child to the park. Watching her baby's curious eyes and joyful laughter filled her with a deep sense of gratitude and hope. She promised herself that no matter what, her child would grow up knowing love, strength, and the courage to fight for their worth. Reflecting on her journey, Avery understood that her story was not just about survival or revenge. It was about transformation. It was about the power of resilience, the necessity of self-love, and the beauty of new beginnings. For anyone listening to her story, Avery wanted them to know this. No matter how dark your past, how painful your present, or uncertain your future, you have the strength to rise. You have the right to claim your happiness, your dignity, and your peace. Her life was living proof that the greatest comeback comes from within. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply choosing to live your truth unapologetically. As Avery continued to rebuild her life and relationships, she discovered that true healing meant embracing not just the triumphs, but also the ongoing struggles. It wasn't enough to have success in her business or to be a loving mother. She needed to find peace with her past and learn to live fully in the present. One afternoon, Avery received an unexpected invitation. Her mother wanted to meet at a quiet cafe, away from the tense atmosphere of family homes or crowded gatherings. It felt like an olive branch, tentative but sincere. Sitting across from her mother, Avery studied the woman who had once been her greatest source of pain. But now she saw vulnerability, a woman wrestling with regret and the desire for redemption. "I know I can't undo what I did," her mother began softly, "but I want to try to be better, not just for you, but for myself. I've spent so many years hiding behind anger and fear, and I'm tired of it." Avery felt a swell of emotions, relief, caution, and hope. "I appreciate that," she said carefully. "It's going to take time, but I'm willing to try if you are." They talked for hours, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes with tears, sharing stories and feelings they'd buried for years. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. From that day forward, their relationship grew slowly but steadily. They celebrated small victories, a phone call without tension, a shared laugh, a genuine compliment. Each moment was a brick laid in rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. Avery's journey wasn't just about repairing family ties. She continued to pour her heart into her business, expanding her reach and inspiring thousands. She knew her success was more than personal. It was a beacon of hope for others who had been rejected or doubted. Her social media followers shared their stories of pain and perseverance, and Avery made it her mission to provide resources, encouragement, and a community for those struggling. She started workshops and support groups, giving people a safe space to heal and grow. But even as her public life flourished, Avery remained deeply committed to her personal healing. She continued therapy, practicing self compassion and learning to confront lingering fears without judgment. Daniel stood beside her through it all, his unwavering love a constant source of strength. Together, they dreamed of a future filled with joy, security, and unconditional support, a family built on respect and love. There were still difficult days. Sometimes the past would cast a shadow, bringing doubts or moments of sadness. But Avery no longer feared those moments. She faced them with resilience and grace. Reflecting on her journey, Avery realized that the greatest revenge she could have taken wasn't to hurt those who wronged her. It was to reclaim her life and happiness, to become a woman who was unbreakable, unapologetic, and free. To anyone watching who feels lost or alone, Avery's story offers a powerful truth. You are not defined by your past. You have the power to rise, rebuild, and create a life filled with love and purpose. Avery's life wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and that was more than enough. Avery's journey was far from over, but each day brought new opportunities to grow and heal. She learned that strength wasn't just about standing tall in moments of triumph. It was about showing up, even on the hardest days, and choosing hope over despair. One day, Avery decided to hold a community event, a gathering for women who had faced similar struggles: rejection, homelessness, single motherhood, and family conflict. She wanted to create a safe space where stories could be shared without judgment and where healing could begin. The turnout was overwhelming. Women of all ages and backgrounds came forward, many with tears in their eyes, grateful to finally find someone who understood. Avery listened to their stories, shared her own, and together they forged bonds that transcended pain. It was in those moments that Avery realized the true power of vulnerability. By exposing her scars, she wasn't showing weakness. She was inspiring strength in others. Her mother, too, attended the event, sitting quietly at the back. Seeing her there, witnessing the impact Avery was making, filled Avery with a complicated mix of emotions: pride, sorrow, and a cautious optimism. It was clear her mother was trying to bridge the gap she once tore open. Over time, their relationship grew into something new. Not perfect, but real. There were still disagreements and moments of frustration, but they communicated with respect and a genuine desire to understand one another. Avery also focused on building a loving environment for her child. She was determined to raise her baby with the unconditional love she had yearned for, breaking the cycle of pain that had marked her own upbringing. Daniel was a constant partner in this mission, sharing the responsibilities and joys of parenting with grace and love. Together, they created a home filled with laughter, safety, and warmth, a stark contrast to the cold rejection Avery once faced. One evening, as Avery tucked her child into bed, she reflected on how far they'd come. From the moment she was kicked out while pregnant, alone and scared, to the thriving woman she had become, the journey had been grueling but transformative. She realized that her ultimate revenge wasn't in proving her family wrong or making them regret their decisions. It was in reclaiming her story, in building a life filled with love and purpose, and in inspiring others to do the same. Avery's story was a beacon for those still trapped in darkness, a reminder that no matter how deep the pain, healing is possible. And as she looked toward the future, Avery knew one thing for certain: she would never let anyone else's rejection define her. She was the author of her own life now, and her story was just beginning. As Avery stood at the crossroads of her journey, she understood that true victory was more than just overcoming hardship. It was embracing the fullness of her life with grace, courage, and compassion. She was no longer defined by the cold rejection she'd faced, but by the strength she'd forged in its fire. Her comeback wasn't fueled by bitterness or a desire to hurt those who abandoned her. Instead, it was driven by love for herself, for her child, and for the countless others who had been silenced by pain. Avery had transformed her story from one of despair into a testament of resilience and hope. The woman who had once been kicked out, alone and pregnant, was now a thriving entrepreneur, a dedicated mother, and a beacon of inspiration. Her family, once fractured by cruelty and misunderstanding, was slowly healing. They had learned, sometimes painfully, the power of forgiveness and the importance of showing up for one another. Avery knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and moments when the past threatened to pull her back. But armed with self-love, a supportive partner, and a community that believed in her, she was ready. She looked into the eyes of her child, the living proof of her journey, a symbol of hope and new beginnings. Avery promised herself that her child would grow up surrounded by unconditional love and strength, unburdened by the wounds she once carried. Her story was a reminder that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about payback. It's about rising, healing, and living a life so full and bright that no one can dim your light. To everyone who has ever felt alone, rejected, or lost, Avery's journey is proof that you can rewrite your story. You have the power to rise, to rebuild, and to shine. And this is just the beginning.